Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and of course a special shout out to all the Gungans out there to today's video where we have our first look, initial impressions of Captain Tarpals, the second Gungan for Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. And I know I've been setting expectations low because we're waiting for the team to build up, but realistically, since the last time we tested out Boss Nass was very impressive. You remember, we saw a lot of the conceptual stuff, and now with Captain Tarpals being added on top of Boss Nass, we're already seeing this team do a 2v5 against a variety of teams, and when we take it down to a 3v3, they're already a very usable 3v3, beating some common teams like Grand Inquisitor, General Anakin Skywalker, maybe even Commander Luke Skywalker on top of that. Really cool, impressive stuff already so far. Of course, I still don't want to overhype the team too much, but man, it's really hard to keep that expectation because they're already impressing us at this point. As I'm going to remind you of some past history about what things made us impressed then, we should probably be very impressed with what these guys are doing right now. I know I'm missing some mods up there, but let's talk about mods very quickly. Brought to you by Pimpo. As always, thank you, Pimpo, for putting this graphic together. If you need help modding your roster from top to bottom, or you need mod advice, be sure to hit up one of the best modders in the game, period. He already got some preliminary ideas for how we should mod Captain Tarpals. Of course, maybe subject to change with depending on how the rest of the Gungans form together as a team. But initially, it's looking like we want to make sure we really capitalize on the damage output Captain Tarpals is bringing. He is, like CG wanted to be, bringing some heat to the Gungans. Very solid damage based off debuffs, based off his own protection. So realistically, offense, crit chance is where we're going to want to go with some focus on speed, crit damage, offense, and protection on top of that. So let me go ahead and just show you again what we're at right now with the Gungans. Now again, we're still very early in the Gungan testing, but man, even though I'm trying to keep this low expectation until we build up the team a bit more, the team's already doing really darn good stuff. I actually see myself in 3v3 before we have a full team. I can see myself using Boss Nass and using Captain Tarpals together. But if you remember, quick summary, if you missed it, Boss Nass kit reveal and the kit breakdown review in the top right-hand corner. If you missed it, the core theme for the Gungans is the shield generator. When that shield generator is up, it's enabling a variety of different effects, making the team super durable. We're in a perfect world. They're basically indestructible. I did a sample battle on Boss Nass where we had a full 501st team going all in on Boss Nass, and he survived the full entire 5 minutes by himself. Now with Captain Tarpals, now that we have our lead in place, Tarpals is going to be able to bring a variety of different damage to the team, which was needed because Boss Nass is borderline pacifist character, although he does do damage passively. When that shield generator is up and he's applying debuffs, he kind of acts like a Newt Gunnery. But now we have real damage that we're throwing down. And Captain Tarpals, oh boy, he's got a lot of great mechanics. The most impressive thing for me specifically was the AoE stun that he has. Now, granted, it's only versus Separatist characters. You know, Separatists aren't really main front in the meta. I mean, Trench is kind of around in territory wars, I guess, at best. So it's still a nice thing to have, but really a very powerful ability nonetheless. But I want to start off with the basic because I think Captain Tarpals probably has one of the best basic buff dispels in the game, where Hey Wesa, his basic ability here, is going to deal its physical damage, and it's going to apply shock to the enemy. It gets really good. This is why I like the shock here. If the target enemy had any buffs, dispel them and deal damage an additional time, then Gungan allies are going to gain advantage and trying to pump out as much damage output as possible. So the shock and the buff dispel is a brilliant combo because you get the shock on, dispel the buffs, and there are some characters that like to have a buff reappear. That would prevent this. So think of like Ninth Sister, for example. At times when we get to the Grand Inquisitor battle, funny enough, somehow the Gungans, just 2 of them, is already showing up one of the worst legendaries of all time, the Grand Inquisitor. Kind of funny because Grand Inquisitor, he had to start his whole brand new faction, Inquisitorius, and they weren't nearly as interesting 2 characters in like the Gungans. So I'm getting ahead of myself here, but nonetheless, getting that shock on Ninth Sister prevents her from applying the taunt again. So really cool mechanics. I think it's secretly one of the best buff dispels for a basic in the game. Now, ouch time. Already kind of jumped the gun a little bit. First off, credit where credit's due. I think it's one of the cooler animations, especially for a marquee character. Really cool stuff they got cooking on here. This is going to deal true damage to all enemies. So think of like Bad Batch. 10% more damage on top of that per debuffed enemy. And we're already seeing there's already a nice chunk of debuffs being brought on from Tarpals, from Boss Nass. this is actually a pretty solid hitting ability. And then we get to remove 10% turn from all enemies, which is it's negligible. It's not too noticeable. But the good thing is enemies without debuffs, they get staggered for 1 turn. So that gives you an opportunity to pull a lot more turn rate off. You can try to connect the dots, and I'm sure more Gungans will help make sure you connect those dots on the staggers. And then Separatist enemies without debuffs are stunned for 1 turn. So when you're going up against, for example, General Grievous, the Geonosians, some Separatists, maybe Trench, turn 1, boom. Stun the entire enemy team. Very powerful. It's like a Jedi Knight Luke repulse or whatever, if you want to think of it like that. Pretty cool stuff. And it can't be resisted, so no amount of tenacity is going to stop it. Remove 2 stacks of recharge from the allied shield generator, and the great thing is, it can't even be evaded. Very strong ability. Unfortunately, okay, he's not Jedi Knight Luke. I know we love our Gungans lately, but he probably shouldn't be stunning every single team. So I think, again, they're bringing a lot of lore and making him be very anti-Separatist. Even though Separatists aren't very meta right now, I'm sure this will be important when we get into the new raid. And, there's maybe a Separatist thing that shows up one way or another. And then the other ability that he has, the No Gibbon Up, pretty decent damage. And I love when you because Boss Nass is a little bit like Tusken Chieftain, where he can call people when he does his basic attack. So right now you only can have Tarpals calling Boss Nass, and then Boss Nass calls Tarpals again for the assist. But you can deal additional 10% more damage per debuff on the enemy. So that could be quite a lot of damage. At times, I think the highest I saw was about 80,000 damage or so against Grand Inquisitor. A lot of debuffs out there. Same thing against, like, for example, Darth Revan. Ferocity counts as debuffs. Helps them out a little bit. Gungan allies will get critical damage up. They'll get protection cover, because remember, protection is the big thing for the Gungans. Going back to our Boss Nass first look review, very durable team when it comes to protection. So the 25% protection is a significant amount of protection on top of that. And on top of that, it's got a cool mark mechanic. So even if let's say you're trying to attack the B2 Super Battle Droid, you're going to apply the mark on the Separatist lead. So in this case, potentially General Grievous. Again, very nice. So Grievous likes to hide behind characters. It's not going to work. You can mark him down straight away. And then his unique ability, we'll talk about the Zeta if it's worth it or not. Very early to tell. We really got to wait for the whole team to come together to see how this really gets put together. Tarpals, kind of like Boss Nass, losing 75% of his max health, turns it into that much max protection. That's great. It's already like a baked-in anti-plague, anti-damage over time, anti-malic. Things that do damage based off max health, anti-Captain Rex. Oh my gosh, there were so many times where Boss Nass took like several aerial advantages from Captain Rex. So again, nothing new, kind of the similar theme the Gungans are working with. Whenever Captain Tarpals attacks out of turn, this is where the Zeta will kick in, we'll talk about in a second. Deal bonus true damage equal to 5% of his max protection, which can be quite a lot, which can't be evaded, and he and the weakest other Gungan ally are gonna get 10% protection recovery. Again, being able to do true damage based off his max protection when he's attacking out of turn, that is a quite substantial amount. So definitely another way for him to get damage, not just from a raw damage perspective, from his physical damage. The true damage on top of it really is what's enabling us to beat things like Commander Luke Skywalker and through some General Anakin Skywalkers. Again, this is very impressive. I try to remind myself, even though I'm trying to keep expectations low for now, I remember when we were blown away when Bad Batch was able to 4-man a General Grievous team. This team could already 2-man General Grievous, and a variety of other teams. Not many new factions were able to do this much 2 characters in. So imagine once we get a tank and Jar Jar and all the other stuff, this could be a pretty serious team. That's what I'm trying to get out there. Anyways, though, whenever Captain Tarpal scores that critical hit, you're removing the stacks of recharge from the allied shield generator. And the reason why we want that is we want to quickly get the shield generator to take a turn, because once all those stacks go, it takes a turn, does all of its funny stuff. And I want to talk about the shield generator again towards the very end. And then you're going to get extra defense penetration on your Gungans. My goodness. And then, of course, Captain Tarpals will get 1% turn whenever an enemy is inflicted with a debuff, which is kind of a lot. Whenever a debuffed enemy attacks, Captain Tarpals is going to be able to counter attack. Remember, when you're counter attacking, you're doing the basic, you're doing the true damage based off your protection, you're getting the shock, buff the spells, all these cool stuff here. And when that shield generator is there, this is going to be a perfect transition point for our conversation. Captain Tarpals has a self-cleanse mechanism. He's going to ignore taunt, and then whenever he attacks out of turn, he's going to get buff immunity on top of the shock. Yeah, that's a lot of stuff that these two already have at their disposal. And here's where I want to kind of talk about the shield generator. Remember, the shield generator is the defining feature of this team. It gives them tons of defense, immune to a variety of things, anti-critical hits as well on top of that. So basically, you have to take down the generator before you take down the Gungans. And I don't know if maybe they changed something. They must have coded the AI versus Gungans super hard against the Gungans. All this gameplay is like worst case scenario. Gungans working against this horrible AI. The enemy team is always like 100% of the time, unless they were counterattacking, 100% of the time going for that shield generator, knocking it down. It's actually quite wild, to the point that even Darth Revan, a character that is hard-coded no matter what, to always drop the fear on the lead to maximize his potential, or if he gets stuck behind a tank, he has to go for the tank, or if they're stealth, he can't get to the leader. He will drop the fear ability on the shield generator, and the shield generator is not even a lead, because when we saw him do the fear of the generator, it would just give Boss Nass fear, not Captain Tarpals. So I don't know if this is going to be a permanent feature where if you're going to bring Gungans on the offensive, you need to be keeping in mind that the AI, they're working hard. They know they have to put 100% of their effort towards that shield generator, which is the appropriate way to play it, right? If you want to get rid of the Gungans. But when I first saw Boss Nass, I thought one of the cool attributes of this team was going to be the AI is an idiot. They're not going to go for the shield generator. It feels like something changed where they're always going for that shield generator, kind of an important part for these Gungans out there. So something to put on your radar. Not just gonna be a permanent thing, but again, the team is far from perfect. But all I'm trying to show is right now, 2 characters in. We're gonna get the Bombardier next. Then we got the tank. The tank is the most important part to this team, because we don't want that shield generator to be knocked down. So we'll see what that tank's gonna bring. Maybe if the tank exists, you can't target the shield generator, which would be massive for this team here. So let's talk quickly about the Zeta. The Misa, think of something. Only one Zeta on this guy. It is a very good Zeta. Again, you know, it's a very new cutting edge team. There's no rush for this Zeta, but I think it's going to be very helpful being able to get that true damage based off max protection. And if there's that shield generator, he turns into like a Treya Jedi Knight Riven where he can cleanse himself. He can ignore taunt, apply buff immunity. Is it like a game-changing Zeta? No, but I think it's going to be one of those second priority Zetas. Again, I would wait for the full team to come out, which only a small group of people need to worry about. We'll make sure we have like a more updated like Zeta guide and all that other stuff for when the Gungans come out. In regards to that Omicron, I'm probably not going to recommend it to territory about Omicron. The team's already looking good as is, and you know, territory is one of those game modes you just kind of expect new teams to be good to beat territory battles, right? You shouldn't need a territory at Omicron. There's only a few select characters and teams I would recommend Omicrons for. I don't suspect this is going to be a popular one. I think it's going to be good. It looks great. All these bonuses. I'm not even going to bother repeating it to you guys. I just don't know if it's going to be worth it, especially in an economy where Omicrons are so valuable for Grand Arena, than Territory Wars, and all that other jazz. If you have the Omicrons, you love the Gungans, go for it. Again, I think every single Gungan's going to have their own Omicron. Boss Nass is a territory one. We have a territory battle here. I'm assuming some others will have maybe the raid for the new Naboo raid, and then Grand Arena. Maybe that's for Jar Jar Binks, potentially. Again, overall, 2 Gungans in. Crazy amount of stuff they're doing. Even myself, trying to keep expectations low, just based off like previous experiences with the Inquisitors and even Bad Batch. I was expecting by like the 4th character, things to be ticking. I think this team's already usable as is. And by the time 3v3 comes around, we'll probably have that 3rd Gungan. I see myself using this against things like Commander Luke Skywalker, some of those weaker General Anakin Skywalker teams without Captain Rex, and 5s. Very usable for the current state that Galaxy of Heroes is in right now. Make sure you also go to the website. There's free 5 shards there, which is basically like a free 1300 crystal pack if you want to look at it that way. And also make sure you're doing that marquee event. They're bringing back that Boss Nass formula, which I'm a fan of. Everyone's going to benefit. If you spend money, you get a little bit of something for supporting the game, especially when there's not really a reason to wail on all these characters right now. We already went over this before. And if you're free to play, you can get this tier 2 reward. You can play this every single day for the next week and get some Carbantes, some stun guns, stun cuffs. Very helpful stuff. So, guys, you know, if you hate Gungans, man, I don't know. I got bad news. This team's looking good. I think it's going to easily be like a Commander Luke counter. I think it's easily going to be a full-on General Anakin Skywalker counter when the team gets set up. And some speculation, maybe a Lord Vader, but I'm not going to go that ahead of myself right now. So the team's looking amazing. I'm excited for the next few, so stay tuned. Until the next time. Woo, man, it's you know, it's just still, it's wild to see that all these Gungans are here in Galaxy of Heroes, and they're not even a joke. These are more impressive than the freaking Inquisitors. Thank God for Reva, or else the Grand Inquisitor would have been just completely thrown into dumpster. Anyways, I digress. Leave a like, comment down below, and all your thoughts. Be sure to subscribe so you're not missing a thing. And always remember, it's great to be in the Empire today.
Oh, it's great to be in the Empire today. The sun never sets. Saturday.